Why don't we go ahead and get started, guys? So first off, I appreciate everyone coming, and particularly coming to the service portion of the agenda. I hope everyone's having a great day. Personally, my first day at Plug was the 2019 Symposium. And that was the best orientation you could ever have. So every one of these, I've learned a lot. I'm here all the time. I learned a lot in Tim's with our customers, which Ryder, I thought, did a great job kind of expressing what we do for customers every day. So we're going to talk a little bit about service, how we leverage and scale and reduce cost in service, and how we're thinking about servicing the future customer base. So really quickly, just a reminder, covered by the safe harbor statement. Bridget will keep me honest here. So first off, what is service for Plug? Because I think that's something I want to make sure we all kind of have a handle on. So our mission is really to provide world-class service for customers, and really bring the ecosystem to our customer base. Over the past 15 years, we've done this with a variety of customers, the world's largest customers, most respected customers in the world. We've done this in the most difficult application that we could choose, material handling. And I say that because we're in and out of freezers every day. We're at new site locations. We've been at Walmart's, at Amazon's, different load profiles. So it's been a huge learning, I would say, for service, but for Plug. We've been in this for 15 years in material handling. We have over 1 billion operating hours in fuel cells. There's no one in the world that comes remotely close to that. We do today, our teams in the field support 50,000 fuelings every day. Every day at our customer sites. These customers are running critical operations that are not only important for Plug, for customers, but they're critical for the world. They're critical for people getting food on their table. So it is very important what we do, and we take that very seriously. I would say the other thing that is really important for service is we want to make this easy for customers. So let's say 7, 8 years ago, we were at, Tim, maybe 80 or 90 customers. Today, we're almost 300. And really, what enables that is the customer experience with hydrogen. Tim talked quite a bit with Tyson about the experience in the demos, the ability to expand with customers, and the ability to expand not only in material handling, but for them to trust us with other applications like stationary power and things that they're really going to depend on is critical. So our team takes a lot of pride in doing that. We maintain our customer fleet. Typically, it's 97% availability weekly, but many times we're at 99%. So we have a very high level of availability, and our customers need and demand that. So again, I would say that big part of what we've been doing in the past few years is building this capability. And this capability, this network, particularly in North America and Europe, allows us to expand not only into material handling sites, but it gives us the skill sets to service an electrolyzer, service a stationary unit that is at Amazon DTN8 in Tennessee. We can use the same network, that skill set, to really do that. And that provides new revenue opportunity. It provides cost down for us because we're leveraging that network. Our team did a tour a bit and presentation about Vista here. This is our global operations center. We have 2 other centers. We have one in Ohio, which is really a service center, a lot of light service operations, remanufacturing. Most of our remanufacturing today is done here, but we also have those operations in Germany. to serve the European market. And that's been really critical for us to be able to expand into Europe and have a footprint for that location. Let me see, time check. All right. Okay, so really, in terms of service costs, I'm going to talk about 3 items. It's going to be about global scale and leverage. That's very important for the markets we're entering. It's important for high power stationary applications and power generation. It's important for our material handling customers. I couldn't help but think about Tyson, which is going to be in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, which is near 4 or 5 of our other sites. Right? We're going to be able to service those locations out of our current existing footprint that we've worked to build over the past few years. This enables us to grow. System life, critical important part, particularly of material handling in fuel cells, but it really is, I would say, something that translates to all of our future systems. We'll have learnings in our future systems, but that stack life is very transferable to other applications like ProGen and what we're doing in the stationary application. The experiences we're having now are certainly more intensive than some of those applications, but it's giving us the learning that we need. And then finally, per unit cost. And that's about really material cost, labor cost downs. Some of what Brandon and Dave covered earlier, it's our first cost of materials, what the sourcing team is doing to drive those cost downs, but also how we think about managing our life cycle cost of components, how we remanufacture, how we think about labor efficiencies in the different regions. So those are the 3 items I'll cover here. So first, this is kind of one of my favorite slides, I know. But we have really built a skill set and competency that is unlike anything that exists in the world for hydrogen today. These skill sets are pretty transferable. I would say very transferable, particularly as you think about applications and systems. And as we, 4 or 5 years ago, we didn't have a hydrogen business, right? So we now have hydrogen plants. We have customer hydrogen plants that are operating that are going to need service. Many of these learnings that we've had in our hydrogen systems, which we operate about 250 of them around the country and the world, we've learned how to operate those safely. And I'll talk about safety a little bit. This is so it's a ticket to enter. You cannot operate in this space with customers without having that degree of safety. It flows from our engineering team and how Merrill thinks about product development, safety classification, but it flows all the way through our teams and how we execute at customer sites. Requires a lot of process procedure, a lot of things that we have to implement as the basis for how we service stationary systems, how we think about things like lockout, tagout, how we think about our technician safety. Many of those things are transferable, particularly in, again, systems and apps. Working on a fuel cell for material handling is not that much different than working on a fuel cell in a GSE or in a van application, or even potentially in a ProGen application. So many of the things that we're setting up in terms of our platform to work in the field, as well as in our service centers, are very comparable. Tooling, fixturing, things like that, some of that will vary, but the basic competencies are there. So it's really about how do we build the right skill sets to handle the hydrogen hubs? How do we take advantage of that major revenue opportunity in service and then drive profitability and cost downs in our service business? So we talk about the platforms. I'd say there's 3 major areas. It's our global operation, how we deliver materials to customer sites, how we think about remanufacturing that what Jeff had covered in the tour. It's our fleet monitoring and diagnostics. So this is our 24/7 intake of information from customer sites. This is how do we collect data from sites, understand that information, and then really help to drive the right things for technicians and our customers. And then it's service engineering, which is an area we've actually doubled down on recently here. Just hired a new leader for this organization, but it's really going to bring our reliability engineering and our service engineering teams together so we focus on those important items for improving the performance of our units at site. And then those items support our regional execution teams. Let me see here. Okay, so a little bit about system stack life innovations. So I'm going to step back a little bit to the Plug MEA. So we've vertically integrated a lot of things into Plug. Certainly has helped us on the hydrogen side, but it's also helped us on the fuel cell side. Vertically integrating the Plug MEA back in around 2015 was an important step for the material cost downs. Because what that allows us to do is control that cost, but it also allows us to understand those learnings that we need to have to continue to make that power density higher. So power density in a fuel cell directly equates to stack life. And stack life is one of the most important items for how we reduce cost in service. It represents about 50% of our service costs, probably a little bit more. And it's something that we've been really working to not only shrink the amount of power in that footprint by using thin plates, finer plates, and then putting more power into that package. So we did see that. We've spoken about this publicly in the air-cooled power platform, where we essentially almost tripled the life of that stack by adding more power. So that's been extremely beneficial to us over the past couple of years, particularly in the Amazon fleet. And now we're incorporating new learnings in our balance of plant, controls optimization, and then increasing our power levels in the liquid-cooled platform. And as Merrill continues the design cycle, we're continuing to incorporate things like metal plate stack into material handling, where we will see metal plate stack enter into the Class 2s, which will allow us a step change into 2024, 2025, as we put even more power. This type of curve is not unlike what you see in solar, wind, and those cost curves that have come down over the past 10 years. So we expect this to continue to really shrink that footprint, allow us to put more power into the same package, and extend the life of those components. I don't know if I'm going to do as good a Dave. I'm going to be over. So last item I'll cover, and then we'll open it to questions, is going to be per unit cost. So the way we think about this is really in two ways. It's material and labor. Over the past 10 years, our density of sites has increased dramatically. So most of that content is in North America, Europe, where we operate. But you'll see that in these high-dense areas of material handling, I mentioned Tyson, which will be it's allowed us to enter into mid-markets, right? We're able to service that customer base because we have a presence in that area. We're able to now serve those customers for a lower cost of entry. But that also applies to technologies like electrolyzer, where we're going to be able to leverage those skill sets that we have on our hydrogen systems to serve electrolyzer in that area. There will be areas that we'll need to continue to develop our skill set. As we think about large plant applications, those are going to require additional skill sets. But from the commissioning to the training to the maintenance that we're doing at these sites, much of it we can leverage now from that labor that we already have at sites. Some of it we're beginning to operate out of our own facilities. Even here in Albany, we're operating some of our sites from this location so that we're really doing a no labor and no inventory approach at some of our customer sites. And that's been really successful. So we're starting to really make that transition to being able to support sites, one remotely with our remote capacity, but also in more of a dispatch fashion. That won't apply to every site, but it will allow us to enter markets where we haven't been in the past. And then finally, sustainable remanufacturing. I know the team did a great job of talking through some of those items, but it's really about how we think about material management through the entire life cycle and extending our material life. Most of it is going to be focused on wear items, but we have a very high success rate with electronics, with recovery for valves, for things that we do not have to repurchase if there's a failure. So we have a very, I would say, extensive process of really trying to recover all of the material. Our goal would be to be able to recover all the material and make that decision if it's worthwhile to repair, extend the life, or replace. And today we're doing this particularly around stacks, where we've been able to add more cells into our package and provide the same equivalent power to customer sites by reusing the MEAs so that we could obtain the same power. So it's really been a beneficial process for stack, battery, our electronics. But I would say just finally, before we take some questions here, it's really about what we've built over the past 5 years, 10 years, 15 years that positions us now to be in a spot to take advantage of this hydrogen economy. And that's what gives us the skill sets, the competencies to be able to execute. It's what our customers are going to demand. And really, it's how we're going to drive our cost profile down in the long term. Not only cost, but drive additional revenue opportunities for margin enhancement. So that's, I'll open it up to questions, guys. I think that was it, right? Yeah, there we go.
So across each of these three elements, global scale leverage,
Yep.
MEA stack life, and then per unit life cycle cost, for each of the three, could you give us an idea of how much each might contribute to the service division's gross margin improvement and over what kind of time frame?
Yeah. So when we think about material handling, we want to think about the entire TCO of that opportunity. So fuel cells do enable the use of hydrogen. So when we think about profitability in material handling, it is going to be part service cost. It's also going to be part what we're talking about here with hydrogen, because we want to be able to use those apps to be able to provide hydrogen. So we want to look at that as a total profitability model. And service is enabling that function. In terms of cost down to help us get to those goals for profitability in that segment, I mean, we talked about approximately 50% of the cost in material handling for service is in the fuel cell stack. So that just gives you kind of an idea of what that parts cost is. And we see that, doubling of stack life along the trajectory, eventually being able to get, at about that amount of cost. So I would say that that's probably the primary item that you'll see cost driving down, and then you'll start to see the labor efficiencies come behind that. I don't know if that address. And then I'm going to talk through the other opportunities we have. So where you have equipment-only sales, we're structuring long-term service agreements that look a little different than a model where we have the revenue stream of hydrogen, right? So those look like product sales with a bolt-on service agreement, and those service agreements, should be profitable as we structure them even today. Some of those will go through similar learning curves around the technology, but we would expect that as we structure those, we're really thinking of those as kind of pure service plays. So those you would think of as, profitable right out of the gate with the structure we already have in place.
And for the latest generation MEA stacks that, I think you said have triple the power density and therefore,
Yep.
equivalent life increase, how far along are you with refleeting with that generation? Be it via new units that have been
Yeah.
put into the field or upgrades, just,
Yeah.
what percentage of your total
Yeah.
base?
So on the air-cooled, that's primarily a Class 2 application. I'm going to say we're probably about 80% through the opportunity that we can retrofit, probably closer to 90 at this point. But that represents probably about 20% of our fleet. The high power application is what we've been really working this year. A lot of that is how we optimize our software in controlling the system around the stack. It's about controlling airflow into the stack, and then it's about adding power to the stack. And fortunately, in our high power units, we'll be able to add that power into the stack without requiring a major retrofit. So we're going to be able to deploy those stacks into existing equipment, and that represents probably another, let's say 60%, 40 to 50% of the fleet. So, as we think then to future generations of the product, like metal plate stacks, you'll start to see that phase in 24, 25, and then retrofit the fleet there. I don't know if that kind of gives you an idea, but I would say we're really through the 80 cell or our air-cooled retrofits, and then we'll be looking to the next generation of what platform will be to come. Merrill, is that, yep?
Thank you.
Just walk us through the end-of-life process for a materials handling unit. So it's at the customer site,
Yep.
something's pulled out of a forklift, I guess, and gets sent somewhere. What happens? What gets reused? What the timing is? What doesn't?
Yep. I would say your tip in material handling, fuel cell life is going to be approximately 10 years. It's going to be the cycle of that piece of equipment. Typically, our arrangements are in 5-year increments for our contracts, but we're usually renewing those for service agreements. So at the end of life, we're taking that equipment back. If there's, we take it back into our service locations, and we're recovering whatever material can be reused or recycling. So we've got, stacks where we could recycle precious metals, and that's 100%, of what we can save goes back into our process. So that's kind of gives you an idea of the end of life. Along the way, we are doing, as I mentioned, other recoverable processes. So stacks or batteries that have failures come back into our service operation, and we remanufacture those through the process. So there's a kind of a midlife, recycling, and then at the end of life, we'll either reuse or some of those components may be obsolete, and those we would scrap. Correct? We still got a little bit of time here.
Chris, some of our early due diligence said that European target customers were unhappy with the service they were getting in electrolyzers. What's different about servicing electrolyzer?
You mean in our electrolyzers or?
Before we began,
Okay.
we were looking at the electrolyzer business and we got back
Yes.
that one big point of unhappiness was
Yep.
the quality of service.
I would, and I'm not going to speak from experience directly from what those particular customers may experience, but I would suspect, George, that it's about having the ability to serve, having that capability to be able to respond to electrolyzer issues. If you have an electrolyzer where you're depending on that hydrogen for your operation, you're going to want to make sure it's available, right? So having the ability to respond with parts, respond with personnel, and then, similarly, electrolyzers in their early phase would be, I would say, still in the learning process, right? So you may be seeing failure modes that they didn't expect. So I think we'll see a little bit of that, but fortunately, we've been able to build, I think, a support network, operations process to be able to support those customers. And a lot of that is thanks to, what our current customer base has challenged us to do, that's made us better. So certainly, we've got probably 7 electrolyzers here that we're, operating, maintaining, stuff like that. So, and I would say that generally, as you work out the issues, they pretty much run. They're not on a fork truck running into issues, going into a freezer. But we are experiencing some of the early learnings of those applications. Make sense?
Yeah.
So,
No 60G shocks.
no airplaning through the aisles, yeah. What else? What other questions? I think I got to ask a question here then for myself. So one of the questions we had that was teed up was partners, and how do we think about partners in the service space, and do we foresee more of that? I would say the answer would be yes, absolutely. Certainly in material handling, you'll see it with some of the channel partners that we're now that our availability is to the point where we can we really trust a third party with that equipment, and we'll be taking a different role in some of that. I would say in the electrolyzer space, or where you have customers that operate their own equipment and we're not operating the equipment, we'll be playing a role more of in a parts expertise, commissioning, training, and then monitoring. And then, finally, I would say in mid-market applications, fuel cell material handling, we will start to see, and we're starting to see already, particularly in Europe, we're doing this already with, Mercedes, BMW, where they're taking a bigger role in that operation because they have a presence already. So it makes sense from a partnership for us to share in that service aftermarket. So I think we'll see more and more of that. We'll see deals that are structured, particularly on the systems, where we're really providing more long-term service agreements with availability targets. So, but that's man. I'm standing between you and a drink. Oh, we still have Andy, right? So, yeah. So, all right. Well, any other questions? Nothing? All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you, guys.